When you ask someone who's the first female coach in the NHL, well, it's a Saski lady. Born in Moosomin, Saskatchewan, ties to Langenburg, ties to Melville. It's Jessica Campbell. The 33-year-old is the assistant coach of the Seattle Kraken, second season doing that currently. The Monday Nooner podcast late this summer had a chance to catch up with Jessica and go through her journey of getting to coach in the NHL. It's episode 234. If you want to listen to the full episode, I broke some of this down. It's about 11 minutes long. She talks about her younger days, what got her there. Just an unbelievable story. Saski girl coaching in the NHL. Here's a snippet of the Monday Nooner podcast interview with Jessica Campbell. Again, it was episode 234.
So what we like to do on our show, mainly talk to Saskatchewan folks and kind of go through the journey. Obviously, you don't just land in the National Hockey League. There's a lot of years and work that goes into it. So going back to starting out, do you remember the first time you put on skates? Like, what are your first memories in hockey?
Yeah, that was in Sask. Gosh, I mean, I think of so many different memories, but I have very clear, vivid memories just at the rink in Rokenville and Elkhorn, Manitoba. We skated there a lot because it was grid roads away from our farm. So between the two, just my parents dropped us off and we were playing tag and skating and shinny with any kid that was in the rink, whether it was 5 of us or 20 of us. I think about the Sandheims, like we grew up with those boys playing against them and with them. And I just fell in love with being on the ice. I loved it. I loved skating. I loved any opportunity to play. And so a lot of my memories were growing up playing boys hockey through pretty much every level through Saskatchewan until I was 16 years old and took the step to the next level with the women's game and moved away from home to BC. But yeah, everything that my core makeup is built in the prairies.
And your mom, she was a player, right? She was probably one of your first coaches. Tell us about, I guess both your parents, but obviously big influences there.
Yeah, huge influences. My mom, we still joke. She always reminds me that she still has eligibility left with the U of S. She was the Huskiettes back then. And she's got a year or two left. But no, I mean, we had the true prairie upbringing. I had 2 older brothers and older sisters. So I was the youngest of 4. My mom and dad coached kind of all of us or just showed up and volunteered. And so I was really fortunate that, my mom was behind the bench of our boys teams, opening up the gate and modeling for me in many ways, which, I look back on now that you could do anything, and maybe in untraditional spaces or in ways. She just showed up and was a leader. She's a teacher. And she gave her time and energy in so many ways to sacrifice for us kids to do what we loved. And so, I can't think of any moments where my mom and dad didn't just fully jump on board to take us to the tournament or, like I said, drop us off at the rink to have some fun and skate and play and burn some energy. But they're huge pieces in my journey. I would definitely not be where I am today had, my mom and dad not modeled what it took and the sacrifice that it would take along the way.
How, obviously, like you're speaking about playing with the boys and times have changed so much. I know I have a daughter in it and Barney has a daughter in it. The girls that play hockey now and the progress, I'll say, in that, like, how proud are you of that? Because you obviously had a big hand in that. You were kind of a trailblazer in that area.
I mean, the game has come so far to even imagine the option to play girls or boys hockey. That wasn't an option for me. And I wouldn't trade it for any other way. I think that it shaped me in so many ways, but just to know that the game has grown and is for everybody. And whether you want to do it on a competitive level, on a AA, a minor hockey league level, a AAA, like there is an avenue for everybody to find their joy and love for the game. And I think knowing that now, I truly believe that I have a huge privilege in what I get to do because I'm now modeling something that I know young girls can see themselves with a new career. And People ask me all the time, when did it shift for you? Or when did you imagine coaching in the National Hockey League? I'm like, I didn't. That was never a thing. I wasn't, honestly, until 2020, till I was coaching NHL players as a skating coach. That's when I'm like, wait a minute, this can happen, or I could potentially do this. And, that's just a testament to really the growth of our game and the opportunities. And I'm extremely proud. And, you speak to having daughters. It's so amazing to know that young girls now can see themselves in the game at the highest level, just like boys.
We ask almost everybody, especially the Sasky players that we've had and coaches, is when you go back to your parents, did they push? There's obviously the nature over nurture. And Shane and I know, right? We see it. We've probably been the psycho hockey parents at times where we're trying to push and we're trying to instill it. And my wife being an educator, like how the brain works for kids, it's different. We were pushed as kids in the 80s and 90s. How were your parents, and what do you remember about them in those formative years?
Yeah, I think we had a balance of both. You speak to the 80s and 90s. I think that was what I knew too. We were pushed, and people always ask me, how'd you end up in hockey? I'm like, I don't know if I had a choice. So that might answer your question right there. I was walking and having skates on my feet at the same time. So, but I loved it. But I know my sister and I talk about this a lot because we both had college careers, and we kind of laugh now as grown adults, she has kids, and we're like, well, would you have done things differently? And, for me, what I was really fortunate with my parents was just that they saw that I loved it. And so then they kind of fed it piece by piece of, hey, you have to play other sports. Like we played baseball all summer. We didn't play hockey year round. Like I never played summer hockey and traveled, to the big city and did all that. I played baseball, and that helped me as an athlete. And I think it also was a way for me to learn that you have to be more than just a hockey player. And that was something, I don't know whether my parents strategically did or not, but they still pushed us to get involved in other things, whether it was school or not. But I will say this, my mom, she's a teacher, and she's still teaching today in Rocanville. And anyone from Melville would know my mom was, billet coordinator for the Millionaires. She got her hands on everything she could to get involved with hockey. But she showed up at the gym, opened up the key to the school, and she would have us run back and forth, jump up and down. Like we were doing little training sessions when we were 10, 12 years old. So I guess you could say she pushed us hard, but I loved it because it was something to do.
Your dad, Gary, right?
Yes, Gary.
Was he a senior hockey guy or anything in Rocanville?
He, I don't even know if he played senior hockey there. I mean, he's been in Rocanville forever, but he's always been involved in hockey. He coached my brothers. He even coached, with the Saskatchewan Hockey Association. Now he's doing some scouting, and he's retired. So, yeah, honestly, I've always taken the knowledge and wisdom from my dad with hockey because he's kind of the balance to my mom. He's always very he's very concise and clear on what's happening. He's not so much, this is my kid's story and situation. He's very much in tune with what the hockey culture is and coaching and everything. So he's always really, really good for me, informative for me in terms of keeping me very much level-headed, where my mom's always like encouraging and pushing and challenging. And so there's this good level-headedness that I get from my dad's wisdom and just, kind of composure.
Opening up the gym to do plyos like the Soviet Union. I love it.
Yeah.
Air conditioning.
They pulled up a video on CBC. I don't know, a couple prior to it. I seen it a lot this past year. I'm like, holy, I think we're in Fort Capel. I don't even know where the heck we were, but my mom was yelling. I'm like, I actually sound like my mother. So here we are.
So with you, obviously your first year coaching in the NHL and stuff like that, but do you have those aspirations or those thoughts in your mind to be like, you know what, maybe someday I can be a head coach in the NHL?
Yeah. I mean, I've been asked this question before, and I don't see why not. That's the path I'm on. I'm trying to be a better coach every single day. I've never really had a clear plan, and I'm not really setting out to have a clear plan. I think that's kept me grounded in just growing as a person and as a coach. Definitely I want to win. That's first and foremost. I want to win a Stanley Cup. That's kind of my next milestone and goal. And in whatever capacity that I'm involved as a coach, whether it's assistant coach or taking a different step, but I don't see why not. Our game is growing every single day, and I'm growing every single day. So to say that I can't do it, I would be taking a step backwards.
Your coaching journey and player development and power skating and all that, isn't there a tie with like Damon Sievertson and Brent Seabrook in there somehow?
Yeah. So when I started, really honestly, and I've told Damon this, we've crossed paths in so many ways now, but when COVID hit, I actually moved over to Europe, to Sweden. I started my skating business, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And, at that time I thought the goal was to be a skating skills coach in the NHL. So for me, I set off to do that. And when I returned home from Sweden, COVID hit, and Damon actually reached out to me because it was the odd COVID bubble, playoff year. Interesting enough, Jersey wasn't in the playoffs, but Damon reached out saying, "Hey, Jeff, do you have ice? I got, a couple guys that would love to come skate and, whatever." So for me, I was doing it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And, I think he brought out Joel Edmondson, James Reimer, Jordan Martinook, and Damon. And I had this group of NHL guys. And that's honestly what catapulted everything, because from Damon came Luke Shen, Andrew Ladd, Shea Weber. Then obviously Brent showed up. And those guys were huge, huge, huge for my development, because at the time I knew what I was doing. I knew my approach. I was just fueled strictly on passion and what I had learned along the way and studied and put together my plan and my method. And I was just following it. And I really had everything to gain, nothing to lose, but experience.
Yeah.
And in addition to Damon, there was younger guys like Matt Barzell. Some of the more, up and coming younger skill guys were showing up as well, and these veteran guys. And that's when it became really clear to me that I could coach at this level, that I could do it, because I was doing it on my own, and they were showing up, paying for my services and interested in it. And so, full circle, I look back on those days and people ask me, when did it become clear for you that you did, or the dream was realized to coach in the NHL? And it was actually skating that group of guys on my 27th birthday. I think there was a group of 25 of them, where they asked me to come out and skate the whole group because COVID restrictions lifted and we could have that many more on the ice. And Brent, I was doing one-on-ones with Brent, rehabbing his hip, his skating, all of his mobility and stuff from a surgery. And he said to me, it's a matter of time, but you're going to coach in the NHL. You're doing it right now, and just stick with it. And that's when I'm like, all right, you just gave me permission to believe in something that's never been done. And whether it happens or not, it's irrelevant. It's just now I have some clarity that I can do this.
Again, if you want to hear that full interview, it's fantastic. Episode 234, the Monday Nooner podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. She goes through, I guess, some of the mentors, some of the people in her life from Saskatchewan that mean so much. The unfortunate, tragic passing of her brother, how they got through that, how she's kind of living on his memory, doing what she does, if you want to catch that.